The Man Who Solved the Market by Gregory Zuckerman. Picture this, a man sprawled out on his office couch, totally deflated. He's just watched a fortune evaporate in the markets. His once bulletproof confidence shattered into a million pieces. He turns to a young employee, barely out of college, and in a moment of raw vulnerability admits, "Sometimes I look at this and feel I'm just some guy who doesn't really know what he's doing." Then he starts rambling about a character from an old novel, someone who chased glory but crashed and burned, only finding peace in what he called a noble death. The young employee's heart is pounding. Is his boss actually thinking about ending it all? Now here's the twist. What if I told you that this same broken man would go on to create the most profitable money-making machine in financial history? A machine so powerful, so mysterious, and so wildly successful that it would make investing legends like Warren Buffett, George Soros, and Peter Lynch look like they were playing checkers while he was playing three-dimensional chess. This isn't fiction, this is the real story of Jim Simons, a mathematician who never once sat through a finance class, yet somehow cracked the market's secret code. Today we're exploring the fascinating book, The Man Who Solved the Market, by Gregory Zuckerman. This isn't just another money story. It's about seeing the world through an entirely different lens. It's about someone who believed that everything, from how planets orbit to the wild chaos of Wall Street, could be decoded as patterns, as signals buried beneath the static. By the time we're done, you'll understand the core philosophy that allowed this brilliant outsider to spark a revolution that's completely transformed Wall Street and is quietly reshaping our entire world. It's a tale of genius, heartbreak, astronomical wealth, and the sometimes unsettling consequences of having that much power. And it all begins with a 14-year-old kid so lost in his own thoughts that he couldn't even keep track of garden supplies. In the winter of 1952, a teenager named Jimmy Simons took a Christmas job at a garden supply store, but his mind wasn't on fertilizer or seed packets. He was so absorbed in his own universe of numbers and abstract ideas that he kept losing track of inventory. Exasperated, the store owners demoted him to sweeping floors. For Jimmy, this was actually an upgrade. He thought to himself, "They're paying me to think." When the job wrapped up, the owners asked about his future plans. He told them, "I want to study mathematics at MIT." They practically fell over laughing. The kid who couldn't locate the sheep manure was heading to one of the world's most elite science universities? It seemed absurd. But young Jimmy didn't flinch. He had this quiet, unshakable self-belief. His family supported him completely. His mother, Marcia, was fiercely ambitious for him, treating his potential like her life's mission. His father, Matty, who'd had to work young and abandon his own dreams for the family business, gave him different wisdom. He told his son, "Do what you love in life, not what you think you should do." And what Jimmy loved, more than anything, was thinking. Numbers obsessed him. At 3 years old, he was calculating powers of 2 up to 1, 024, just for kicks. At 4, he puzzled over a classic paradox during a family drive to the beach. He figured their car could never truly run out of gas. First it would use half a tank, then half of what remained, and so on, forever approaching empty, but never quite getting there. He'd stumbled onto one of Zeno's paradoxes, a problem that had stumped mathematicians for centuries. He knew early on he didn't want to be a doctor or businessman. He wanted to be a mathematician or scientist. He wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but it involved numbers, and that was good enough for him. This wasn't just about crunching calculations. It was about the sheer beauty of it all, the elegant hidden truths that mathematics could reveal. He'd lie down for hours, eyes closed, working through problems until he found his own unique solutions. Late one night at MIT, he spotted 2 of his professors in a cafe, deep in animated discussion over coffee and cigarettes, surrounded by equations. Something clicked. He thought, "That's the life I want, coffee, cigarettes, and math at all hours." But there was another side to Jimmy, a restless, adventurous streak. After graduating from MIT in just 3 years at age 20, he and some friends decided to ride motor scooters from Boston all the way to Buenos Aires, Argentina. They called it Buenos Aires or bust. They crashed in abandoned police stations and jungle hammocks, got confronted by a hostile mob wielding machetes in a small Mexican town, and even landed in jail before the town's Harvard-educated mayor discovered who they were and threw them a lavish dinner. This was Jim Simons in a nutshell. Part brilliant methodical thinker, part restless adventurer who needed a massive challenge, a seemingly impossible puzzle to crack. He quickly earned his Ph.D. in mathematics, married young, and dipped his toes into trading with a $5,000 wedding gift. He got hooked on the adrenaline rush of trading soybean futures, but soon realized it was an emotional roller coaster. He told a friend stocks were kind of boring when they barely moved, yet the volatile commodities world left him both fascinated and unsettled. He set trading aside and settled into life as a professor, but that familiar restlessness crept back. After just 1 year teaching at MIT, he asked his wife, "Is this it? Am I going to do this my whole life? There has to be more." The more he was searching for came from an unlikely place, the Cold War. In 1964, Simons left Harvard to join a top-secret intelligence group called the Institute for Defense Analyses, or IDA. This elite organization recruited the nation's brightest mathematicians to help the National Security Agency, the NSA, crack Russian codes. And this is the most crucial part of his origin story. At the IDA, Simons wasn't just doing math anymore, he was breaking codes. His job was to sift through mountains of seemingly random, meaningless data, intercepted Soviet communications, and uncover hidden patterns, secret messages, signals buried in noise. He learned to develop algorithms, which are basically step-by-step instructions for computers, to test theories and attack complex codes. He and his colleagues developed a mantra: bad ideas is good ideas is terrific, no ideas is terrible. It was an idea factory. This is where the foundation of his entire investing philosophy was laid. He learned that with enough data and the right mathematical models, you could find order in what looked like pure chaos. While at the IDA, he and another brilliant codebreaker named Lenny Baum wrote a classified paper. It wasn't about Russian codes. It was titled, Probabilistic Models for and Prediction of Stock Market Behavior. In it, they proposed something radical. The market has underlying states, like a high-variance state where stocks swing wildly, or a good state where they generally climb. Here's the revolutionary part. They didn't try to figure out why the market was in a certain state. They didn't care about earnings reports, Federal Reserve announcements, or geopolitical news. Instead, they used sophisticated mathematics, a tool called a hidden Markov model, to analyze pricing data itself and figure out which state the market was in. Think of it like being a poker player. You don't need to know why your opponent suddenly feels overconfident or miserable. You just need to recognize their mood from their betting patterns and adjust your strategy accordingly. Simons and Baum were proposing to do the same thing with the entire market. They were saying the reasons don't matter. What matters is identifying the pattern and having a strategy to profit from it. It was an idea decades ahead of its time, but it was just theory, a classified paper locked away inside a government research facility. Simons's IDA days came to an abrupt end. He vocally opposed the Vietnam War, and after writing a letter to the New York Times arguing against it, he told a Newsweek reporter he was essentially going on a personal strike, focusing only on his own math research until the war ended. He was 29 and, as he later admitted, a bit of a wise guy. His bosses weren't amused. He got fired. Getting fired turned out to be fortunate. It led him to become chairman of the math department at Stony Brook University, where he built a world-class department from scratch by recruiting what he called killers, academics with laser-focused determination. But by 1978, at 40 years old, that familiar restlessness returned. He'd conquered theoretical math, excelled as a cryptologist, and built a top university department. He needed something bigger. He decided to leave the quiet, respected world of academia to do something his colleagues found baffling, even slightly shameful. He was going to play the market full-time. One mathematician later said, "We looked down on him, like he'd been corrupted and sold his soul to the devil." But Simons was confident. He'd spent years trying to master the market's chaos, and he was certain he could tame it. He was about to discover just how brutally hard that would be. He set up shop in a dreary strip mall, sandwiched between a pizza joint and a women's clothing boutique. He named his new firm Monometrics, blending money and econometrics, signaling his plan to use math to beat the market. His strategy was to put that old IDA theory into practice. He just needed the right partner. He called his old code-breaking buddy, Lenny Baum. At first, Baum was skeptical. He knew nothing about trading and cared so little about it that his wife managed their family finances. But Simons showed him charts of currency prices, and Baum, the pattern finder, saw something. He saw structure. He quit his IDA job and joined Simons full-time. Soon after, another brilliant mathematician from Stony Brook, James Axe, came aboard. Simons was thrilled. He had two of the world's most acclaimed mathematicians working to crack the market's secrets. And for a while, they were on fire. They made a killing betting on the British pound, correctly predicting that Margaret Thatcher couldn't keep its value suppressed. Money was flooding in. But the market is a harsh teacher, and it was about to hand these geniuses a humbling lesson. Their first major mistake was trading like everyone else. Instead of sticking to their models, they started relying on intuition and gut feelings, the very things their system was designed to eliminate. Lenny Baum, naturally optimistic, loved to buy and hold forever, convinced prices would always rise. This worked until it didn't. During the 1980 gold rush, as prices rocketed past $800 an ounce, Simon saw people lining up to sell their gold jewelry. He panicked, realizing a flood of supply was about to hit. He screamed at Baum, "Sell the gold, Lenny!" Baum refused, convinced the trend would continue. Simons eventually forced him to sell, but the conflict created a deep rift between them. A few years later, in 1984, Baum made a massive, stubborn bet on U.S. bonds that went horribly wrong. The losses were so catastrophic they triggered a clause in his contract, forcing Simons to liquidate all of Baum's positions and end their partnership. The emotional roller coaster of trading had claimed its first victim. Simons himself wasn't faring much better. He'd tried to build a fully automated trading system, which the team nicknamed the piggy basket, because it included live hogs as one component. For a while it worked beautifully. Then one day, the system developed a bizarre obsession with Maine potatoes. It bought so many potato futures contracts that regulators called Simons, alarmed that his tiny firm was about to corner the global potato market. The regulators forced him to sell, costing him millions. He and Baum couldn't even figure out why their computer wanted so many potatoes. They lost faith in the system. This brings us back to that desperate moment on the couch. By then, Baum was gone, and the firm's trading was in shambles. The losses were stomach-wrenching, he told a friend. There's no rhyme or reason. He confessed to his young programmer, Greg Hollander, that he felt like he didn't know what he was doing. His grand experiment seemed like a failure. But Simons didn't quit. He emerged from his funk more determined than ever. He told a colleague, "I don't want to worry about the market every minute. I want models that make money while I sleep." A pure system without humans meddling. He was done with gut feelings, intuition, and human emotion. He was going back to the original plan, a pure, mathematical, automated system. He just needed to find the right people to build it. That's when two names surfaced from the computer science world. Two researchers at IBM working on something seemingly unrelated to finance, teaching computers to understand human speech. Their names were Peter Brown and Robert Mercer. Peter Brown was charming, creative, and energetic. Robert Mercer was his opposite, tall, quiet, socially awkward. A genius who hummed classical tunes around the office and ate the exact same sandwich for lunch every single day. They were working on speech recognition, trying to get computers to transcribe spoken language. And they were using the exact same mathematical tools Simons and Baum had theorized about back at the IDA, hidden Markov models, and the Baum-Welch algorithm. They saw speech as a chaotic stream of data. Their program's job was to listen to sounds, crunch probabilities, and make the best possible guess about the hidden words generating those sounds. It was another form of finding signals in noise. In 1993, after personal tragedies left Mercer rethinking his life, and Brown grew frustrated with IBM bureaucracy, they called a quirky little hedge fund on Long Island, run by a former mathematician. They joined Renaissance Technologies. This was the turning point. This was when the dream team finally assembled. Brown and Mercer took the struggling stock trading system Simons's firm had been working on and completely rebuilt it. They treated the market just like they'd treated language at IBM. The old system was decent at generating trade ideas, but it kept failing in the real world. It would recommend buying a stock that wasn't available, or use too much leverage, forcing a human to override it. These small errors would cascade, throwing the whole system out of balance. Brown and Mercer's genius was building a single, monolithic, self-correcting system. It accounted for all real-world constraints, trading costs, leverage limits, risk parameters, and optimized the portfolio in real time. If a recommended trade couldn't be executed, the system didn't crash. It automatically self-corrected, searching for the next best set of trades to get the portfolio back on track. It was adaptive, a learning machine. But even this brilliant new system had a flaw, a tiny, nearly invisible bug buried deep in the code. For months, the system bled money, and nobody could figure out why. The pressure was intense. The older researchers on the futures trading side, still making a fortune, whispered that the new guys were just computer guys, not real mathematicians. The hero of this chapter is a young, insecure, brilliant programmer named David Magerman. He'd just been hired from IBM and was desperate to prove himself. He was also the guy who'd crashed the entire firm's computer network weeks after starting, making him a temporary pariah. Working through the night, eyes blurry from staring at the screen, Magerman found it. A single line of code was using a static, outdated number for the S&P 500 from 1991. It wasn't updating with the market. It was a simple, stupid mistake, but it was throwing everything off. He fixed the bug. And instantly, the system started printing money. The long losing streak was over. The machine finally worked. From that point on, Renaissance Technologies became unstoppable. They built what's now the most legendary and secretive hedge fund in the world, the Medallion Fund. They hired a team of misfits, astronomers accustomed to finding faint signals in cosmic data, computational linguists from IBM, and statisticians. But they famously refused to hire anyone from Wall Street or with a finance background. Patterson, their head of recruitment, said, "We can teach you about money. We can't teach you about smart." They created a culture of radical openness inside the firm. Every single line of source code for their money-making algorithms was available for any employee to see and experiment with. They had a single, unified trading model, encouraging everyone to collaborate and share ideas, knowing that bonuses were tied to the entire fund's performance, not individual projects. Their strategy evolved. They weren't just looking for simple trends anymore. They were hunting what they called multidimensional anomalies, subtle, complex mathematical relationships between hundreds of different factors, patterns hidden to almost everyone else. They realized investors aren't rational. They're driven by fear, greed, and cognitive biases. A firm researcher explained their premise. What you're really modeling is human behavior. Humans are most predictable in times of high stress. They act instinctively and panic. We learn to take advantage. They didn't need to be right all the time. In fact, their system was only profitable on barely more than 50% of its trades. But by making tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of trades a day, that tiny edge was enough. They were the house in the casino, and the law of large numbers was on their side. The results were staggering. From 1988 to 2018, the Medallion Fund generated average annual returns of 66% before fees and 39% after fees. They racked up trading profits exceeding $100 billion. To put that in perspective, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway averaged around 20% over a similar period. Simons and his team were in a league of their own. But this incredible success came with new problems. The firm became a victim of its own genius. Their short-term trading strategies were so effective, they couldn't manage too much money without moving markets against themselves. Simons decided to cap the medallion fund at around $10 billion and, in 2003, did something unprecedented. He kicked all outside investors out, making it a private fund exclusively for the firm's employees. The money pouring in was almost incomprehensible. Researchers were making tens of millions annually. A quiet Long Island area became known as the "Fermelaire" as employees bought up mansions. The parking lot, once filled with old Toyotas and Saturns, started seeing more Porsches and Mercedes. And this is where the story takes its final, dramatic turn. What happens when a machine designed to generate wealth works almost too well? What do its creators do with all that power? For Jim Simons, who'd tragically lost 2 sons in separate accidents, the answer was philanthropy. He stepped down as CEO in 2010 and poured billions into his foundation, tackling some of humanity's biggest scientific challenges, funding research to cure autism, and building a massive new observatory in Chile to search for the universe's origins. He'd solved the market. Now he was tackling bigger problems. But for his co-CEO, the quiet, eccentric Robert Mercer, the answer was very different. Over the years, Mercer had developed intensely conservative and libertarian political views. He harbored deep hostility toward government, a view he traced back to a frustrating summer job at an Air Force base in his youth. He believed the Civil Rights Act had been a mistake that infantilized African Americans. He, along with his politically ambitious daughter Rebecca, began using their immense fortune to reshape American politics. They invested in a fledgling media outlet called Breitbart News, run by an agitator named Steve Bannon. They funded Cambridge Analytica, a data firm that controversially used private Facebook data from millions to build psychological profiles for political targeting. And in 2016, they became the single biggest financial backers of a long-shot presidential candidate, Donald Trump. When Trump's campaign was collapsing in summer 2016, it was the Mercers who intervened, convincing him to hire Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway to stabilize things. Their money and strategic influence were, by many accounts, critical factors that put Trump in the White House. This created an unprecedented crisis inside the secretive walls of Renaissance. Jim Simons, a lifelong Democrat, was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest donors. His firm was now run by the man most responsible for her defeat. The conflict came to a head through David Magerman, the same programmer who'd saved the trading system years earlier. Magerman, horrified by Trump and Mercer's politics, felt personally responsible. He told his wife, "I've made software that makes white rich guys like Mercer even richer." He decided to speak out. He gave an explosive interview to the Wall Street Journal, publicly calling out his boss. He was immediately suspended and, after a dramatic, drunken confrontation with Rebecca Mercer at a charity poker tournament, he was fired. The controversy grew. Protesters started showing up outside Renaissance's offices. Key employees threatened to quit, telling Simons they could no longer work for a company whose leader was bankrolling a political agenda they found repulsive. The firm's morale was collapsing. Finally, Simons had to act. In November 2017, Robert Mercer stepped down as co-CEO of Renaissance Technologies, though he remained at the firm as a researcher. The political storm had finally breached the walls of the world's most secretive hedge fund. In the end, Jim Simons, the man who started it all, had learned a difficult lesson. He'd spent his life building a machine to operate free from human emotion and irrationality. And for decades, it worked better than anyone could have imagined. But he discovered that no matter how powerful your algorithms are, you can't model away the messy, unpredictable, and powerful consequences of what humans do with the wealth and power that machine creates. He solved the market, but the human element remained the most complex variable of all. When you step back and look at Jim Simons' story in Renaissance Technologies, it's easy to get lost in the mind-boggling numbers, the billions of dollars, the 66% annual returns. But if you look closer, I think the most powerful lesson in this book has nothing to do with money. It's about a fundamental shift in how we can approach incredibly complex problems. For centuries, the heroes of the investment world were savants, people like Warren Buffett or George Soros, who seemed to have magical intuition, an almost superhuman ability to see the future. Their success reinforced a powerful idea that mastering a complex field requires gut feelings, experience, and a kind of artistic genius. Jim Simons's story offers a radical alternative. His core belief was that human intuition, even genius-level intuition, is fundamentally flawed. We're all ruled by cognitive biases, by fear, by greed, by overconfidence. We see patterns where none exist and miss the ones right in front of us. His solution was to build a system that was disciplined, data-driven, and most importantly, free from human emotion. He didn't try to predict the future in one grand, heroic bet. Instead, his machine made thousands of tiny, statistically backed bets, knowing it only had to be right slightly more than 50% of the time to win big in the long run. This is a profound idea that goes far beyond Wall Street. In any area of your life where you're trying to make better decisions, whether it's your health, your career, or your personal habits, the Renaissance story suggests that relying on a consistent system is almost always more effective than relying on willpower or momentary inspiration. It's about trusting the process, not your mood. So here's a simple, practical way to apply this lesson today. Think of one area in your life where you'd like to improve. Instead of just trying harder, try being a scientist for a week. Just collect data. Don't judge it, just observe. Track what you eat, or how you spend your time, or when you feel most energized. At the end of the week, look at the data. You might just discover a hidden pattern, a signal in the noise of your own life that you never noticed before. That discovery is the first step to building your own system for success. The story of the man who solved the market is more than just a financial thriller. It's a testament to the power of curiosity, the discipline of the scientific method, and the humility to accept that a well-designed system can often see the world more clearly than we can. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come not from having all the answers, but from learning how to ask the right questions and then trusting the data to guide you. That was the book summary of The Man Who Solved the Market by Gregory Zuckerman. We've certainly hit the highlights today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in those quiet moments when a particular story or simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, grab a copy, because reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see the world of finance and human decision-making. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.